Good evening. It's your boy ConcertViz34, and today I do want to talk about Dave Matthews Band and a Rolling Stones user submitted poll for 2019 for the top jam bands. And is Dave Matthews Band actually a jam band? We want to talk about that today. I want to talk a little bit about ticket confirmations as well, and then anything else you guys want to talk about. We will talk about. Shout out to my guys, Patrick Brewer, who's gonna be he's either on right now or should be on, and then John Dix. I know usually he pops in as well, and anyone else who likes, comments, subscribes, or gives input. Thank you guys for supporting me. I really appreciate it. I do this just because I like to share my opinions on music, and I also like to hear other people's opinions. I like to be educated by other people that have knowledge of things that I don't have knowledge of when it comes to music specifically, because I am only one person, and I know that I'm still learning a lot every day about different types of music and learning a lot about the different types of shows that you can go see, both old and new bands. Patrick Brewer saying I don't put D&B in the category, and I agree. That's really going to be the premise. That to me, Dave Matthews Band is not a jam band. Number one. Uh, Number two. Now this is user submitted. These are fans. They're being polled. They're being questioned, and it's not Rolling Stone directly. I think the bands that are below D&B on this list are actually better jam bands because they actually are jam bands. I don't put D&B in that, and I'll give a couple reasons why. And but I do think that one thing, as much as people try to discredit the Dave Matthews Band, you can't deny the successful songwriting. You can't deny, even if you don't like the type of songwriting they do, you can't deny the talent they have. They have world class musicians that I'll put head to head against the majority of the artists on the list. Not everyone, but again, I will put Carter Beauford against any drummer from this top 10 list. I will put him head to head. I will put Leroy Moore against any other sax player, even those that have guessed it for Pink Floyd. Leroy Moore is a transcending saxophone player who, like his the person who influenced him to play the type of music D&B plays, Branford Marsalis, him and Leroy are jazz guys who figured out how to play with these, you know, rock slash acoustic guys in a way that was never before done. And Bradford Marsalis, he is someone who he goes back to playing with the Grateful Dead, the number one jam band of all time. That can't be disputed. It will never. I mean, I don't see anyone really topping them ever. I'm sorry. I just don't. What they did, how they did it, the people that are involved with the band, those who passed early, those who are still alive, and even some of those influences and writers that recently have passed in the last couple of years, there's no one better. And that the Grateful Dead to me is just a book that is the largest. It's the Bible of jam bands. Their catalog, their music, they are the birth of the jam band. Without the Grateful Dead, the rest of the list doesn't really exist. Maybe the Allman Brothers would still be the Allman Brothers, but other than that, everyone else, as far as jam bands, um, I don't think they do that. So let's first talk about why I don't think D&B is a jam band. Number one, they don't have setlist variety of jam bands. Part of jamming and part of really freestyling in any form is that you're not doing the same types of freestyles every night. And while the Dave Matthews Band has variety and different tweaks every night, and they were doing trial and error on the road of different songs, they still were playing the same songs every night from day one to now. When you look at the touring, they're not playing out their entire catalog, even in the early days when they had a catalog that they never fully played out. They weren't mixing it up. And when you look at other jam bands, what they do is they play out their entire catalog for the most part. Certain songs never make it live. Certain songs are saved for special occasions. And certain songs can't be executed live because of how they were recorded. But overall, jam bands play tons of different stuff. The idea is if you go to 2 or 3 shows, you're getting an entire weekend, you're getting an entire week of different shows, maybe some overlapping a little bit, but you're really getting a lot of different experiences. No nights are the same. And while I would have loved to go to some of the 3 night stands here in Hartford, Connecticut that were taking place in the 99 and I believe it was 2000, the band was playing some of the same songs for 3 night stands every night. And that's not a bad thing because what you got is you got to see this band improve the song on the road, try lyrics out on the road. And that's part of improvisation. But when you play the same stuff and it's the same ideas and concepts, that's not a jam band. That's a band who's playing music that is evolving on stage. A jam band has different flows. A jam band, you hear a song, like for instance, Humphreys McGee on this list, they played a song called Mantis. And I've heard Mantis once live, in the jam in the middle of Mantis live that I've heard is different than the jam they played in Atlanta last year. And I saw Mantis last year, I heard Mantis last year with the band. And it was different in 2 different occasions. In Atlanta, the 420 Fest that I purchased that, listening to it today when I went to a hockey game, just to kind of get an example of this. And what that was at the show I went to in New Haven just over a year ago in the winter months of 2018. So that's number one. They don't play this, they're playing the same similar sets every night, even though there are some things swapped in and swapped out. 2 night stands, they try to do different sets. But that's really it. You're getting a song, certain songs are likely to be played every 3 shows on average. And that's not something jam bands typically do. And then the other thing that we have here is DMB does not communicate primarily through jams, okay? And what I mean is that one of the things about jam bands, yes, they have lyrics. And yes, some of those lyrics are amazing, okay? And especially the Grateful Dead. The Grateful Dead do the best job of having these great lyrics and then communicating through the jams. But DMB is lyrics based. They have an amazing backing sound. They have an amazing set of artists that have come and gone, and some have passed, some are still with us, some have quit, some have been moved on, some have been fired. But nonetheless, the communication is really lyrical for the band. As much as we love the jams for Seek Up, we love the 41s, the majority of the stuff they play, even a Seek Up, a lot of it is lyric based. That is not a jam band. That is an artist who is writing music and then deciding to play extra parts later. But even those extra parts for Dave Matthews Band, they're predictable every time. Now, Tim will mix it up. Rashawn will have different stuff. He still plays the horn the same way, but he'll have different stuff he adds in, certain interpolations he'll cue in. But really, every night, you're getting the same song. When Samurai Cop is played 2 nights in a row, it's Samurai Cop. When Seek Up is even played 2 nights in a row, it's the same premise. There's some improvisation, but mostly the lyrics guided. With jam bands, here's the difference. When you listen to a Humphreys McGee, when you listen to a Mo, when you listen to a Widespread MF Panic, they are communicating through their jams. Their fans go there for their jams. They're not going there for the lyrics. Matter of fact, the lyrics aren't even the main part of the song, it's the jams. And the jams change. Think of the Dave Matthews Band as a band that always they don't change a play at the line of scrimmage, okay? They're a football team that never audibles at all. Whatever play they're gonna call, they call it. Now there's variations on those plays for sure, but they call the play and then they perform the play very, 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 very well. But they call the play and then they perform it. What you have at true jam band concerts is you have motions, you have signs, you have fans putting up different stuff, doing different stuff, calling Omaha, Omaha, even in, like Tom Brady's in the Super Bowl, Reagan, Reagan, calling out stuff. Whoa, let's not get political time, come on. But he did call Reagan one of the plays. They're not checking the defenders. And also John Dix, Pearl Jam is more of a jam band than DMB. Right, you can say that, but and Pearl Jam also plays out their catalog. You know, they don't play the same stuff every night, and they don't play that. They actually don't tour as much, uh, really at all. They do a lot of big stadium shows, and that's it. Sometimes they do a winter tour. Oh, excuse me. But I mean, they don't tour as much. But when you go to their shows, you go to two night stands, you're getting different shows. But they're right, yeah. Once you've heard Crash Into Me, you've heard them all for an era. The only thing that changes with DMB is the tempos and some of the instruments. That's really what's changed. You take a Rashawn into the band, and Leroy passes away short, after he's added, and you add Tim as a full-time member versus someone who has to sit behind the big presence of Leroy more at the time. And Tim played a lot softer when Leroy was, when Leroy was alive. Tim played a lot softer with the band than he does now. So, but again, the thing when I go to a Humphreys McGee, when I go to in who else? Humphreys and with Dead and Company, but also I'm trying to think. Oh, String Cheese Incident. There are signs, there are audibles. They're looking at the crowd and they're reacting off the crowd. Okay, the crowd's feeling this way. This crowd's more stoned, or this crowd's more drunk, or this crowd's on something else that we won't mention. They'll based on the crowd reactions, they will call audibles in the middle of their jams. They have different endings. They have different things that you'll see for the same song. With DMB, it's really you'll see changes, but they're really on the next tour. They're playing the song the same way. And that's why I don't think really they are a true jam band. Now they do jam out, don't get me wrong. And the other thing, Crash Into Me Live Track 7. Okay, so yeah, that's Hampton. That's the New Year's show. There 90 is that 96 and 97 or 95 and 96? One of those years, but okay, so yeah, I have to listen to that again. I've listened to it, and I've actually ran to that a couple times. Oh, 96, yeah, John Dix knows what's up. 96 and 97, right? So it starts off in 96, Happy New Year, 97, right? Yeah, okay, because yeah, John had been telling me about those other New Year's shows before that he was talking about. Yeah, the last New Year's Eve show, right? So, but I mean, it's just to me, DMB is a little different. They do jam, but it's just it's not like these other bands that I go see, and they have a completely different set. You see them 4 shows in a row, and there's 4 different shows. Even when you were chasing DMB for 4 or 5 shows in the '90s at a much cheaper price than now, you were getting some of the same songs, but you just loved those songs and they sounded great. So I really think that it's hard to put DMB on this list. And the other thing too is there's different. The other thing is when you take a Jimi Hendrix, I mean, obviously you can argue he's the best guitar player of all time or one of the best. Jimi Hendrix is playing the same set every night for the most part. And he played 2 sets many times. He played 2 sets. So he did a 6 o'clock show and an 8 o'clock show, or whatever you have. There's certain artists that don't necessarily they can jam out, but they're going along with a set performance, just like a figure skater, just like a gymnast, and that's not wrong. That's not bad. But in some senses, it is easier to do that than to do what true jam bands do. I'm not talking just Jimi Hendrix and his band, but like I'm talking like the Grateful Dead. What they do to be able to have 4 shows in 5 days and to play completely different sets every show. There was a challenge to that. There was a difficulty to that that also sacrifices how the band's energy is. What the Dave Matthews Band does is when you see them live, them boys are sweating, they are exhausted, they are running around, they are jamming out. Dave is always just moving. They move and they feel the energy, but the energy they're putting in, their heart is in that. Dave is yelling, screaming, groaning, like the band is just going all in. But when you listen to other jam bands, like when you listen to an Humphreys, a Government Mule, not that they're not putting their soul into music, because they definitely are, especially my boy Warren Haynes with Mule and Widespread Panic, Jimmy Herring, and the rest of the squad. They put their emotion into it, but they're not sweating like Dave Matthews is when he gets off stage right at ending a set with Ants or ending with Gray Street, and then going for the encore, he has to change clothes or get the towel and wipe himself down. They are just it's truly about the music speaking more than the actual person yelling and screaming. And even with rock and roll, certain metal shows and rock shows, they will put their energy and heart into the performance, the stagemanship. Especially the lead singers that don't play instruments, they will throw the mic up, do all this stuff. But that's separate from jamming. Jamming is an art form where it's not about how you look; it's about the sounds that you are bringing through your instruments. And the Grateful Dead and the Allman Brothers are, to me, those are the best two. I mean, I was fortunate enough behind me as the Allman Brothers from 2014, the last run. I went to the first show of the last run on my birthday when I turned 24. And I mean, the cool thing about the Allman Brothers is they lost Dwayne too soon, R.I.P. But they still kept going. Dickie Betts kept going. They had Derek Trucks and Warren Haynes and Oteil came on. Like they kept finding ways to just be great. Same thing with the Dead. I mean, obviously they did losing Jerry was losing the soul of that band, but before that they lost Pigpen. Different people rotated in and out. You had years with Donna, you had years without Donna. Like they kept Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead just kept their spirit alive. And to me, it's not when I heard the Allman Brothers with Derek Trucks and then Warren Haynes, it wasn't like it's like, oh crap, this band totally sucks without Dwayne and Dickie Betts. Like, no, that's not the case. Like they still were amazing players. And matter of fact, Derek Trucks with the Allman Brothers was in his prime. He was in his musical prime. Um, so early Pink Floyd. And that's the thing too, is Pink Floyd, I can't speak much on their live stuff. I listen to a lot of their studio stuff. I'll have to listen to it to see how they rank. But I can tell you, Mo, Humphreys, Mule, Widespread Panic, they're above Dave Matthews Band with what they do. The full list again is Grateful Dead. This is a user submitted poll. They using user data. They're people that subscribe to Rolling Stone. But Grateful Dead was one. Allman Brothers was two. Fish was three. Cream was four. Dave Matthews Band was five. Widespread Panic is six. Government Mule seven. Humphreys McGee eight. Pink Floyd nine. Mo 10. And here's the thing. As with all this said, the one thing I'll say is that the Dave Matthews Band is a gateway drug into jam bands. They teach you some of the fundamentals that are necessary to be able to understand jam bands in the language of a jam. Number one, the shows are longer than your average typical show. I mean, even some of the biggest acts in music, even some of the legends like Elton John that I've seen, Billy Joel, they're only gonna play for 90 minutes. Sometimes they'll extend it to 2 hours, two and a half, maybe. And that's total runtime. That's with the set breaks, all that stuff. The Dave Matthews Band plays 2.5 hours of actual music now. Now they used to play 90 minutes to 2 hours. They play 2.5 hours of music at times, 2 hours and 15 minutes most days. That helps that helped fans like me get into being able to sit through a Humphreys McGee show, to be able to sit through an Allman Brothers show, to be able to sit through a String Cheese Incident show. I learned the patience of shows go by so fast for me now when I started going to Dave Matthews Band shows because I started going to Dave Matthews Band shows. The Dave Matthews Band also taught me how great a jam can lead up to lyrics. You can have a seek up intro and that thing go for 5 to 8 minutes before you really get to the lyrics. Before that, I wanted to hear the freaking lyrics. If I went to shows, I don't want no long A jam at the beginning of my music. I want to just see. All right, let's get to the point. Let's come on, wrap it up like Dave Chappelle, wrap it up, box. Yeah, Fish was on the list. Fish was number three there, and to me, I still gotta listen to more Fish. I have not got into them, but it's an overwhelming catalog. I still have to, and some people like them, and some people don't. After they do that, I don't know what side of the fence I'll lie on. I do respect Trey Anastasio, and have heard him with other artists that I like. And I've heard some Fish stuff. I've on Sirius XM Jam on, driving when I had my XM package twice. Had it when I bought my car. Had it this summer. I've heard different stuff just listening to certain Pandora radios. I think I turned on a Fish show once on YouTube when I was doing homework in college, but I have to listen to them, you know. But Dave Matthews Band is a great gateway into what will eventually, if you do like what they do and how long they play, the different jam bands who have two full sets of music. They take a break in between. You're there for 3, 4, 5 hours between getting there, tailgating, again there, getting merch, chilling, waiting for them to the opener, waiting for the band, set change, set break, playing, with Grateful Dead, Drums in Space, the last song. Wilson is the only Fish song. I've heard I think I've definitely heard Wilson. I've heard the references to it online and different memes and stuff. But Fish is a little different. I mean, to me, I can't imagine them being better. I think to me, the Dead and the Allman Brothers have an ease of taste. Yeah, so Patrick Brewer's not in it. Yeah, and I think that's why I think, and again, I can't say enough, but I was shocked to see Fish at number 3. But then again, they have that jam band bass. Trey can't sing. I don't care as much about singing. I like lyrics and just having the core fundamentals of being able to sing. But they are a jam band, so again, the sound quality doesn't matter. I know some people it does matter too. And even Cream, I can't speak on that. I've heard their hits, but I haven't heard their live recordings. But like I said, Panic, Mule, Humphreys, Pink Floyd. Yeah, Trey. I mean, Trey is really good. And the other interesting thing about the Dave Matthews Band, when it comes to jams, I actually like some of the musicians. And this doesn't mean Tim Reynolds is an amazing guitarist, and he does some stuff that I'm like, whoa, like Sugar Will back in 2016, like bro was going in. He goes in, but I like how Derek Trucks approaches a solo more than I like how Tim Reynolds does it. I like how Warren Haynes, Jimmy Herron, Zeppelin. I gotta, John. I know you had recommended some stuff for Zeppelin. I gotta get over it and start streaming that stuff there on my Spotify. And yeah, but thank you, John. I'm gonna check out that stuff. Appreciate it. I just got to get to it. That's the thing. I got to get to it, and I got so many things musically, and I think that's how it's gonna be for a while. I just have so much music that I'm always observing. I mean, tomorrow, for instance, I perform in my church, youth church's band. I'm playing electric guitar, acoustic guitar, and I'm learning a lot of gospel music on guitar. I've been doing that for about 2 years. So I have that. Like after this, that's what I got to practice. But in Zeppelin, right. And I think the other thing with Zeppelin, though, too, and this is with Floyd, too. Floyd and Zeppelin, they're just amazing artists, and they jam. But they don't play out their catalog. They just do the same type of set. Like the Roger Waters, The Wall. Like when they perform this stuff solo, Gilmore, Roger Waters and Plant, they do some of the same stuff every night, but they jam. I mean, don't get me wrong, they jam, but they don't have that variety. That's the other interesting thing. How do you rank setlist variety with jam bands? Because like I said earlier in this video a couple minutes ago, to me, how you jam out and if you can put together 6 or 7 different shows where none of the songs are repeated, that's impressive. Now, I think sometimes that can be a bad thing, especially with certain Dead and Company. Now, it's not the Grateful Dead, but Dead and Company shows. And even some of the Grateful Dead bootlegs I've heard, some of those shows just are too deep. They're too deep. And maybe if once I start to get more of the Dead's catalog, I may like it. But sometimes the shows run flat, even when I know the song, because they don't have enough of the bread and butter of that band. They have something that's a really, really deep cut, and you're like, huh? All right, I'm going to the bathroom. And it's not to discredit Jerry and my boy Bobby Weir and the rest of the squad, but it's just sometimes they go too deep, and that can be a problem. But I think jam bands, people think of jam bands in different ways. Some people think DMB is a jam band. I've seen these discussions on forums. A lot of people don't, even the hardcore DMB fans, but I don't. And by the way, Humphreys McGee, what they do is highly underrated, and I know I have talked about them going to the show a couple weeks. I think it was last week, yeah. Cause yeah, last week I went, a week from this past Thursday, I went down to College Street Music Hall, great venue as well. But Humphreys McGee, they are so versatile. The covers they do are versatile, and they are an amazing band that, to me, I think they should be higher on this list. Every one of those artists on the band is a class act, and they almost had like they yeah. Check out Humphreys. It's a learning curve for sure. Like I was already into DMB when I got into them, and Humphreys. It took a while. It took a year or two for things to click, but they are just the one thing I'll say is when you go to a show, people don't realize how heavy they are. When you listen to their studio tracks and even some of the stuff that's live, um, you don't realize how heavy they are until you feel the music in the venue. When you see the light, they have the best light show I've ever seen. And I'm talking big scale productions, Elton John, Billy Joel, the Houston Rodeo. I've seen some 60,000, 70,000 person crowd 2 nights of the Houston Rodeo. But the light show with Humphreys McGee, it's choreographed with their light guy, and the light guy knows every type of jam that they can do on certain songs. He doesn't know everything, and sometimes they shock him too, and he has to adapt. But he knows that if this is play A, this is audible A, audible B, audible C, audible D, and he's listening to figure out which it is, and he knows how to work the lights. They have a top-notch crew. And also the cool thing about Humphreys, you can get snow cones over your head to get the live feed from the soundboard, and you pay for those, you pay an insurance deposit, and then you get it back in the show. And it's a little pricey, but their tickets are $30. So you add it on at like 60, 70, $80. That's an average ticket price for a lot of the artists that people see. So I highly suggest going to Humphreys McGee shows if they're in your area. Tickets are so affordable, 20, $30. You can go to a bunch of different shows. There's not brokers who buy up the market, except for, they have Red Rock shows, some New Year's Eve shows, they get bought up. But if you're a fan club member, you're gonna get tickets. You just have to make sure you have the money to fly out to Atlanta or Tennessee or wherever they perform that given year. You gotta be ready to fly out. But they play the Beacon a lot of times 3 nights in a row, but they are an amazing band. And to me, they are just underrated. But I hope, to be honest, I hope some of you guys enjoy it, but I hope that their prices stay the same. I hope that the I hope they don't get too mainstream. I want them to be recognized, but I hope that the venues are still intimate, and I think they will always be. I think only a certain amount of the public is going to be into this niche area of jamming. But that's one of the things is, to me, Humphreys is something I'm looking more forward to at times than Dave Matthews Band, because they're still in a point of their career where they're creating, they're more innovative. With DMB, they're at the tail end. Now the tail end could be 10 more years. You probably see some changes, especially with Carter. He'd be like 70 something. But DMB has, and look at the Rolling Stones, look at the Who. As long as people stay, Lord willing, stay alive, they could play another 5 to 10 years, if not more. They could physically do it. It's gonna be a different band, but they're at the end. But Humphreys McGee, those guys are in their 40s, I think, late 30s, 40s. Those guys still have some good years till they get to 50. And then even past that, I think they'll be jamming forever. You look at Buddy Guy, that boy can still play, or that gentleman, Mr. Buddy Guy, can still play there. And he plays at shows, doesn't tour as much, but he still can play. Guitar playing, as long as you don't get arthritis, or as long as you don't have dementia. Clapton had some issues with hearing, but as long as you kind of have the precautions to keep yourself healthy, you can play forever. So that's what I got for that. The tour. I was gonna talk about tour confirmations and things like that, but we still have to see what happens. To me, what's interesting is I really don't. I hope I get Hartford tickets. I really do. I really hope I get Hartford tickets. If not, it's not the end of the world. I'll figure out a way to go to that show. I'm not buying Mansfield tickets because last year all the ticket prices dropped closer to the show. I'll go and get a single. I'll go and get whatever. I just want to make sure I get a parking pass. I requested a parking pass from the warehouse. That's a venue you need. You need a parking pass for. It's just to get in, get out. It's easy. I'll tell you this. and I'll make a video closer to the DMB launch. The Ticketmaster process is, if anyone's, let me know, chat, if you've been through a tough Ticketmaster process this year. Not talking about a smaller band where you're able to get tickets at the GA show, but like, for instance, I went through John Mayer. There's been a couple other big artists that were on Ticketmaster, and it was frustrating for people. But this whole process is a mess. A lot of tickets are platinum. Anything in the lower level is being upcharged, or they're trying to sell high and they'll lower the price later if it doesn't sell. I don't think it's cool because, to me, I'm a type of guy, I don't care if I'm the front row or like dead center. I just want to be in the lower level. I love side stage. That's my go-to. Side stage is dope, man. Like, it's just dope to be side stage. You feel the crowd. You know how the songs sound. If the sound isn't as good as being at the soundboard, it's okay. But I like to see what they do on stage from the side stage view, or even behind the stage. Billy Joel was amazing behind the stage. But Elton John I saw from side stage, and that was my only Elton John show, but I liked how Elton was like right there. He would go from side to side with his moving piano, but on a motorized little platform. But I mean, the process is frustrating, and the pricing, they're doing things, and look, this is what sucks about Ticketmaster, and it's kind of like, if it's almost like a lose-lose. Let's say we go after Ticketmaster for what they're doing with scalpers, and they're in bed with these ticket brokers and trying to feed them the best tickets. And before the tickets go on sale, you see the stuff already for resale on Ticketmaster, not on StubHub where it's spec listing or it's season seats. And spec listing is just selling something before you have it. You sell it at a high enough price that you hope prices drop below for comparable seats close to the venue. You sell a ticket in section 225, or no, 125, row 6, and you hope that the demand dies down and you get 125, row 3 for a cheaper price closer to the show. You call up StubHub, you call up Vivid Seats and tell them, hey, I got this. It's within 3 rows or 5 rows. Can you offer this to the ticket buyer? And ticket buyer's like, sweet, I got row 3. I don't care. Now some of them will complain. And that's the best thing to do. Complain and check the ticket prices. Demand more if that ever happens to you on the secondary. But if they're spec listing, or whatever, like, that's one thing. But it's just, on a secondary, that's one thing. But on the primary, it's a horrible thing, because the whole point is you want to have access to try to buy face value through the box office. You don't have that. And the face value of these tickets is going up. And, John Mayer, 85 was the get-ins, and okay, you're kind of established now. You're getting older. You're almost a nostalgic act at this point, given how quickly things are going. You have people that are, some of these young artists are influenced by John Mayer, Charlie Puth, and a couple others. I think Mendez, I can't remember his first name, but they've been influenced by John Mayer. So you are becoming a nostalgic act in some senses. You're getting into that second part of your career where you're like, you have fathered these homies, these well, not Negroes, are white, but you fathered these people. They're your sons. But I don't know. I just think the pricing, the flex, the number one thing is the variable pricing. And by that I mean, what Ticketmaster has the right to do, and they're posting it on their pages, they reserve the right to change the price based on demand. So if you buy a ticket, right, you buy a ticket on the on sale, and that ticket is $150, right? If the demand does not fit and there's tons of seats left over, they can change that ticket price down to $50, to $100. Or the reverse could happen. Let's say you buy a ticket to an artist that's not viral, right? So you buy tickets to XYZ, and you buy tickets 7 months in advance. Then that artist gets on a movie. They have some sort of social justice warrior moment. They go and save a kitty from a fire tree, and everyone's like, hey, let's go support XYZ. They can raise the price of the box office tickets that have been sitting there for months to a higher price based on demand. And their cop and plea is this: hey, well, you know what? We're trying to stop the brokers from overselling it. We'd rather have you pay us more or keep the ticket on closer to the event so that brokers can't get it and sell it, which is a bunch of garbage because they are literally promoting in ticket broker conferences to have people sell through their exchange. The other concern is it's a conflict of interest. What secondary markets do is they understand people are going to be trading and selling with each other. They want to make the fees on the sales. So whenever something is resold, StubHub or Vivid Seats gets a convenience fee. So if things are traded and sold, the same ticket is traded and sold 5 times, they get 5 service fees and whatever that based on the percentage of the fee, and they get it for the buyer and the seller. That's in some situations I don't care because tickets will go based on supply and demand because it's a secondary. It's based on the market. If no one's buying the tickets are gonna drop because the brokers have to get rid of them. But when they create a false sense of supply and demand by before tickets go on sale, they are literally handing barcodes over to ticket brokers, working with ticket brokers, having the ticket brokers be rewarded for reselling the tickets on the Ticketmaster exchange. That's where the fan loses. Why? Number one, you cannot sell a ticket on Ticketmaster below face value in 99% of the scenarios. That means, or no, in music show, you can do it for certain sporting events because they want to make sure that you can, if you can't go, let another fan get in and then they get in concessions and buy beer and they're still there. But for music, 99% of the time, you cannot sell a ticket below face value. And what that does is that means if you give all these tickets to brokers, they can't sell the ticket below face value. Even if they sell it to you at face value, Ticketmaster is making a convenience fee charge. So what does Ticketmaster want to do? Well, they want to give all their tickets to brokers, right? The brokers still have to pay the convenience fees, the service charges, etc., etc. Guess what? When that ticket broker puts the ticket up for resale, and let's just say mommy X wants to please their kids because they don't want to be a true parent, and they want to shut them up by getting them Taylor Swift tickets, and mommy X works hard for her money, daddy X works hard for his money, and they drop way too much money on ticket prices. Well, guess what? When they get that resale ticket, what happens is not only did Ticketmaster make the fees on the original ticket, now that box office is making additional fees on the resale. And when the primary does this, there's no price, there's a price floor, meaning you only can list a ticket for this amount, not lower than that, period. So when there's a price floor, no matter what, they are making a certain amount of money guaranteed. No fan is benefiting from this resale exchange because if they want to buy tickets last minute, they're going to pay more than face value or the same. They're not, unlike StubHub, they don't have a chance to get tickets below face value. And this is something that's possible with baseball. It's something possible with artists who overshoot their buzz. Soulja Boy decides to do an arena tour because he had his little moment, and then the arena tour doesn't sell as well. And if you want to go see Soulja Boy, you can't get a ticket below face value on Ticketmaster because, again, you can't list below face. But guess what? On StubHub, that $100 ticket you can buy for $50. A broker is cutting his losses. And that's the other thing. Brokers cut their losses. As much as we think that brokers are these rich, powerful, successful people, some of them do have money, but it's never ending. Once you start accumulating money in order to maintain that lifestyle, you have to continue to do more and more and more. Also, the cost for a broker to get a ticket, this is not justifying the outrageous prices they charge. The cost for them to get someone, they get a high school kid. Hey, you got an ID. Hey, you have a debit card or you have some cash. Go to this Ticketmaster booth, buy this ticket from me. I'll give you a certain cut if it sells. Hey, so-and-so, use your ID, use your IP address because they're going to block me and go buy a ticket from me. I'll give you a little cut of it. We're going to raise the price up and sell it. It's a Madison Square Garden ticket. Some rich parent in Soho or the upper West Side will buy the ticket for Jingle Ball. So they do these things, and it is expensive because they have to pay for legal fees if they're sued. They have to pay for seller fees. When certain sales fall through on StubHub, they charge these brokers a certain amount. Or certain brokers, when reputation goes bad, business goes bad, or their tickets get canceled out by Ticketmaster, they have to pay a couple $1,000 to fill this order that they have to fill. And there's no sympathy. They've got themselves in this hole. That's the risk they play. But they have expenses and they're not making a killing. And they're also always stressed, just like gamblers. A gambler could go big one week, but the next week, if they go bad, that's it. If they have a bad year, that could hurt them. They don't get a steady paycheck, so they're hustling and scheming and ripping and running to try to get tickets. The benefit is if something truly is not up to demand, they will lower the price and take their loss. They will get whatever they can back. They'll salvage it back. And when Justin Bieber comes into town and Ticketmaster's in bed with them and gives them tickets, they'll make that money back. So it's a very confusing business. There's a lot going on, but all I can say is that if you have a chance to get if you did make a warehouse request, if you do have a chance to make a warehouse request in the future, make the darn request. Don't be bitter. Pay the $35. It's not that much. All this money you spend on posters at every darn show, you poster holics. I have different posters from different shows. I don't have 70 Dave Matthews Band posters, but by the time you pay for a poster, it's the same price as the DMB warehouse, and it's a shot. It's a shot. You're paying for a lottery. Let's say you go for 7 shows and get 3. Well, those are 3 shows. You don't have to go through some broker. You don't have to go through Ticketmaster, and you get it right there. You get it, no stress. It's over. Especially here in the Northeast. And I think that's the one interesting thing is I think people have different stories about cash or trade. They have different stories about getting tickets. And one thing I'll share is here in Connecticut, it is hard to get tickets to a DMB show. Okay? If I want to go to Saratoga, it's nearly impossible. Mansfield can be hit or miss depending on the year. I'm betting that it's going to be easy, just like last year, to get a ticket for face value. But Hartford last year, it was darn near impossible to find anyone on cash or trade to have a Hartford ticket outright. They were like, oh, you want a Hartford ticket? You got to trade me for SPAC. Bro, get out of here. Peace up, A-Town down. Oh, you want a Hartford ticket? I need your kidney. I need your leg. And you got to give me your wife. And I hope I'm not offending anyone who's married with that. But anyway, the point is, like, the trades were outrageous. I waited. I paid about I can't remember, like 130, 140 for a ticket last minute. In the uppers, it was an aisle seat. It worked out. It was an aisle seat, and to me, hey, man, give me an aisle seat. I'm good. But I ended up paying 130, 140 or so. And the face value is like 85 or whatever. So I did pay a lot over face, but I wanted to get a ticket. And this was 2 days before the show. Now, the day of the show, all these people come out of the woodworks. I got a Hartford ticket for sale. I got a Hartford ticket for trade. I got all this stuff. I'm not waiting till the day of the show to trade or get a ticket on cash or trade. I got to know the 48 hours before, or I got to see a lot of tickets are still available, and then I'm just being greedy to make sure the price drops. I cannot afford when Hartford or SPAC or any of these closer shows, to me, when it's hard to get tickets, I have to go through the secondary. Sometimes I have to pay over face, and that's one thing I hope fans from other parts of the country understand. All these people are telling me on DMB Family, not people in every direction. I actually think that people are more reasonable on that. But on DMB Family, don't buy the tickets from the broker. Don't do this. You're going to hell. You're going to... Look, no matter where you buy the tickets, A, the broker probably got them somehow, or Ticketmaster is playing broker. And then B, if I want to go to this show, who's to tell me that I shouldn't pay more? When someone buys beachfront property in Miami, no one says don't feed the realtor, or don't feed the greedy property owner. No, you got to get property. Same thing with North Carolina. That's more realistic because most people aren't buying beachfront property in Miami. People want to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a very popular hub. My boy John Dix, maybe you can speak on Nashville, but I know a lot of people are moving to Nashville to chase their dreams and for business. But you can't tell someone who needs to move to Charlotte, North Carolina, who makes a big salary here in Connecticut, and their job is letting them move to, hey, don't overpay for that house. No. If the house is cheap in Connecticut dollars and someone has a Connecticut salary, you can't knock them for overpaying for that North Carolina house so that they can beat out other competitors from other parts of the country. That Connecticut property owner has every right to say, you know what, I'm going to overpay to get the heck out of Connecticut, and I'm going to overpay to secure a nice home in the Charlotte metro area. Same thing with Nashville, same thing with whatever. And it's funny because tickets are demonized, but everything you have is in some ways marked up, overpriced. You go to certain restaurants, it's marked up and overpriced. I go to get New Haven pizza, and a pizza this big Shout out to it's National Pizza Day or whatever. This is National Pizza Month. I'm going off topic too much, but that's in October, the month I was born. I love pizza anyway. But the point is, people will go to these restaurants, and because there's hipsters, because there's foodies, the New Haven pizza this big, like I'm talking like this big, can be $13. A Sally's pizza that big, I went to Humphreys McGee and ate before. It that big is $13 or 12-ish, depending on what toppings you get. But it's the best freaking pizza in the world. But it's upcharged because it's the best pizza in the world. There's high demand. It was 4 or 5 degrees below zero at some points of the day I went to this place, and people were sitting in line outside. There was only 2 or 3 people in the line. I was number 2, so I got to stand in the doorway and get that heat, in the little side doorway. The point is, people are, it's hell is freezing over in Connecticut, and people are still waiting at Sally's Pizza on a Thursday. Place was packed. So, and when it's nicer out, those lines go out the door. Pepe's and Sally's, Worcester Street in New Haven. Look it up. You ever come to Connecticut, go there. But people overpay for stuff all the time for the demand. Something in Florida is different than the price of something in Connecticut. You get land in rural Texas, it's going to be a lot cheaper than rural land here in Hartford, Connecticut, greater Hartford area. That's the reality. And that's the thing is some people, we have no choice if we want to go to SPAC. And many times I've just said no to SPAC because of the prices. But everyone has their price. And some people, they work hard, they raise kids, they have all this, they don't have a lot of time, and the one weekend they get off is D&B weekend. When D&B comes, the wifey says, okay, we can go to this, we'll hire a babysitter. That may be the only show they go to that year. Are you to tell them to not buy a pit ticket for $300? You can't tell them that. You can say you disagree, but you can't tell anyone they can't buy a pit ticket for $300. Especially with this variable flex pricing, $300 is a bargain. So if someone on StubHub lists a pit ticket for SPAC and it's $400, $500, but that person is going to be in a very intimate pit. They make good money. They work hard 365 days a year. You can't tell them not to buy. Now, I'm not going to buy a $500 pit ticket. I've never paid over $200 for a D&B ticket. And the reason I was paying that is because of the demand of the show. And one of those shows happened to be like a really, 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 really good show. But anyway, I think that certain people, we're having these debates of don't feed the scalpers, don't whatever. At the end of the day, you're feeding someone nowadays. Sometimes you got to call the shots like you see them. I see certain venues, I say, I'm not buying till close to the event. Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. I lost with Hartford last year. I said, I'm not buying a ticket on the on sale. I got denied for the warehouse. I said, I'm waiting until closer to the event. I had to pay $140, with fees, $130, $140-ish. So I got burned, but it is what it is. You play a game, you call the shots, you know your budget, you know how much you need to pay your bills off to stay out of debt and have good credit, because chicks love good credit. I really think that people have different prices, and you got to come to the North. If you don't live in the Northeast, you don't live in certain parts of the country where tickets are hard to come by, you won't know. Shoot, the Mid-Atlantic for Camden has 2 nights, okay? Camden has night 1, night 2. And for many Camden folks, you can get a ticket to one of those nights. You can get a pretty good ticket to one of those nights. Maybe, who knows how it'll be this on sale with the screwed up ticket price. But there's 2 shows. Here in Connecticut, Mansfield and Hartford have a ecosystem of their own of D&B fans. They used to sell out Foxborough Stadium, and that's like 50, 60,000 people for a concert. And they used to sell out the Meadows Music Theater, or the Meadows, which is the Xfinity Theater, for 3 nights in a row in Connecticut in the late 90s. That's 90,000 fans, 30,000 a show back in D&B's prime. So you're telling me these markets that loved D&B, that the only thing that wasn't selling out at these shows was the Hartford lawn. This 22,000 person lawn. Outside of Alpine, it's probably the biggest lawn population-wise that you have. Maybe the Gorge. I don't know. I don't know how big the Gorge lawn is, but I know that the size of Hartford is more than the Gorges combined. Like Hartford can hold 31,000 people, and I've been on shows where there's 31,000 people. So the point is, Hartford has 1 show for its market, which is a huge D&B market. Mansfield has Boston, New Hampshire, all that stuff now because there's no Guilford shows. So it's harder to get tickets in your local area, because those two cities are D&B hubs. Where Pennsylvania, yes, they do 2 nights because they have tons of people from central Pennsylvania, South Jersey, and South Pennsylvania, in Philly, that go over to Camden, New Jersey for the greater Philly metropolitan area. But that's one market. In that market, they used to have Hershey, sure. And some of those people that in Hershey can just go to, well, there's no Pittsburgh, but they would go to Pittsburgh. But even the Pittsburgh market, you can go to Ohio. You can drive a couple hours, you'll be in the Ohio market, or drive a couple hours and you're in Camden, okay? But long story short, and I'm ranting again, I really think that Camden is different because you have 2 nights in the same venue, and really people can split up. Some people go both, some go one, some go two. There's twice as many tickets for that market than Hartford. And Hartford's a bigger D&B market than Camden is. I'm just saying, straight up. Straight up. Now, the reason they don't do 2 nights in Hartford is because that venue, you got to sell out the lawn for one of those nights, and they don't do that. But the lawn is 22,000 people, okay? Pretty much every arena that ever has existed in the United States, except maybe one or two, you could fit that entire arena population, not a dome or like a super dome or a football domed area, but I'm talking a regular, arena for basketball and other stuff, multi-purpose stuff. You could fit that entire population onto the Hartford lawn. That's how massive the lawn is. Alpine, I know, has a big lawn too. But when the lawn is that big and you have a show in Mansfield, some people, the fair weather fans, aren't paying for the lawn because they're lawn seats. And that's the other thing too, is a lot of people in Hartford, if it was all like seats and every seat had a view of the stage and it was 30,000 seats, then it would sell out probably. But when it's not a seat, when there's mud, when there's rain, when it's different stuff, the lawn is nearly sold out, but it's not fully sold out. And I know they're like, oh, that's not good, and the venue's expensive. Probably, I'm guessing the venue is more expensive because of how big it is. So they're like, oh, we're just going to do one show. But Camden gets 2 nights because it's the Mid-Atlantic. That's the one show they do out there in that market. And otherwise, there's no Baltimore show. There's no, D.C. has, the Bristol is in the southern portions of the D.C. Metro, but it's not in D.C. So they don't have a show in downtown Washington or Southern Maryland, so they do Camden twice. You got to drive out there. It's a weekend show. Go to one of those shows if you live in Maryland. So that's what, it's a little different. That's all I got for today. Any thoughts real quick? I do want to head off in just a moment, but any comments or thoughts, definitely hit me up right now. Patrick, I'm sure you're on there. What up? And John, I don't know who the other person is, but next Saturday, yeah, I'll see, because we'll probably have confirmations, just to be honest. The charges are there. I'll probably be on next Saturday, too. I have to see what I'm doing. Hold on. I drink some water. Woo! 53 minutes, man. I can talk. But, yeah, we'll probably talk about confirmations. But thank you guys for coming out and supporting this. Sorry for everyone who's like, bro, this dude's been talking for 53 minutes. But I love talking D&B. Sometimes I won't have as much to say as other weeks, but this week, just the jam band thing and talking about shows, I have a lot of expertise about the secondary ticket marketplace. And, just from experiences from people I know who have worked in that field. We have Ticket Network here, or Ticket Galaxy, and I know people who work there, and StubHub just left Connecticut, but I know people who were working in seller support services, working with brokers for StubHub. And by the way, StubHub they do not own tickets per se. They do not own tickets at all. They use brokers, and they have benefit and reward systems. And one of the things I'll say real quick is, one of the things that StubHub credits sellers on is selling a certain amount of tickets and a certain dollar amount. So while you'll see a lot of cheap baseball tickets, these brokers are trying to just fill sales and get released tickets out. And StubHub just wants tickets to be out in their market. So they reward sellers they probably sell, they're pretty they're pretty much tools when it comes to the best shows. They're gonna sell them for way over face, but some mom in Arizona is gonna buy it for to see Ariana Grande. Their kids see Ariana Grande. But when it comes to a baseball a Rockies game in June, the ticket's gonna be lower because that broker in Colorado has got to just they got to get rid of those tickets. They got to sell them. They got to get something for them instead of nothing, instead of the ticket going to waste. So maybe I'll try to see what more I'll talk about with ticket brokers and all that, how that works. I don't want to give away too much, but I do want to give some insight into because people don't know the whole story behind how that works. But I have some insight just from knowing people that have been in the business there personally. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for being here. Definitely like, comment, subscribe. And it's your boy Conservist34 on Twitter. Check out my little sermon. That's my sermon thing. It's kind of cheesy, but I did a little confirmation sermon with the organ music there as well. And check out all my other stuff on Twitter, Instagram as well. Patrick, I know I found you on Instagram, and I'll be messaging you as well when I have other stuff going on. Instagram, Conservist34. For Facebook right now, some people know my page. I'm not adding any new friends on Facebook just because of for privacy reasons. For other now, I share a lot of my life, but there's just other stuff. There's family stuff that gets posted on there, and I don't want that stuff to intermix with people that I don't know. So again, follow me on my other social media. Anything else, all my social media is public. The Instagram, the YouTube, and the Twitter. And I share certain stuff on that I feel comfortable sharing with everyone. That's all I got. I need to shut up and get practice for tomorrow. I got to play this guitar in the youth church for the children and the teenagers and the advisors. Everything got to practice the material so I can jam out there. But it's your boy Conservist34. Definitely like, comment, subscribe. Thank